Assistant Manager of Candidate Voter Services Division.
Let's start with the first one. This is no. Am I correct, Michael?
Yeah, yes. 21, no overseas questionnaires.
We have 21. Can you explain that to questionnaire return? No overseas questionnaire return.
There's a questionnaire that each overseas voter gets that they are required by the code to return with their ballot, and these were not returned with these ballots.
What kind of questionnaire is it? Just out of curiosity.
It's whether they are citizens of the United States, plan on returning to the United States, those type of questions.
And with no previous address here, just that they were registered to vote here.
Yeah, if they were registered. And the biggest question is, do you plan on returning to the United States? If they put no on those are some of the rejects that are further down. But they have to return it with the questionnaire. Must come back with the ballot. And these they just did not return the questionnaire.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, the other category, Mr. Franco, is the date returned. That's blank here, but obviously they did return it. Correct?
Yeah. Yes, it's. I believe it's the way we had to run the report. We had to pull it out of like an Excel spreadsheet on that one.
Will we do a follow-up to these overseas people, telling them that they're about?
There's no requirement for us to do that.
Is this a long form or how many questions are on it?
There's approximately 8 questions on it. I don't know if I heard it. I apologize. I can go and get one.
Is this a federal requirement?
Yes.
Yes.
This is a requirement under the Help America Bill.
It was prior to that.
Oh, even prior to that? So this questionnaire is not new?
No.
But these individuals requested a ballot, am I correct?
Correct.
Well, they could. They could be on. We have an absentee permanent voter list, which is if they applied in 2004 with a federal postcard, we're required to keep their application for 2 federal elections and automatically send them a ballot. And these could have very well been in that category where they received the ballot, they sent it back, but without the questionnaire. And we mailed the questionnaire with instruction and that to them.
I have a motion for... Well, I think every category is, I think we're going to have to do it, am I correct? So we have 21 overseas ballots that
I'll second.
the movement seconded to reject the 21
I have a question.
overseas ballots that were returned without the questionnaires. All those in favor?
Mr. Bennett, excuse me, I have a question as a credentialed observer who observed part of the counting of those
You want to
votes.
go up and-
Thank you. I'm sorry?
Identify yourself.
Sure. I'm going to go over here and... Hi, Adele Eisner. Happy Thanksgiving. Who returned from Adele Eisner, Cleveland Heights, Ohio. I'm a credentialed observer for the 5 statewide candidate observer project. And I have to state, I'm not sure which category my question, actually, if not a challenge, falls under. But I did observe last night the handling of some federal absentee ballots. I couldn't get close enough, nor could I handle to really see exactly what they were. I couldn't see the questionnaire. However, I did observe a few things. They had been kind of loose ends that were being gathered up at the end of last night. I didn't observe a questionnaire. I did observe a few sheets of paper. I observed a couple of letters, handwritten letters, a few sheets of paper that looked alike, so they could have been a questionnaire. I did observe the people who were doing remakes. Those were ballots, the loose ends were remakes of, or first makes of what was sent in. did observe those people questioning where was the ballot. They weren't sure where the votes were. I did observe that Mr. Vu very rightfully said that these people could only vote in the federal elections. So it was federal Senate and federal representative. I also observed that, and I really question this, that two people wrote and said, I'm very busy here. I observed stamps from the UN, one stamp from Iraq. I would imagine is a military vote. I'm just guessing. I couldn't really handle to see. However, I did observe two people. One person, in fact, said, I'm busy, as one of the people read the letter. I'm very busy and I haven't been able to catch up. But, and didn't know the exact names, but asked for their votes to be entered in the Democratic column. I'm not saying there's partisan partiality here at all. I'm not trying to indicate that. However, because there is no straight ticket in our election, which I'm a little bit unclear about because I thought Hava said that, or the Secretary of State actually said in his original plans that the Diebold machines or whatever vendor had to have the availability of a straight ticket. I did observe those votes.
That's against the law in Ohio.
Good, I'm glad. I prefer that. However, one of my questions later about provisionals and about the handling of the absentee process regards overall following voter intent. So I'm wondering if on the one hand, not having a law or being against the law to have a straight party ticket and people overseas saying, I'm busy here at war, and so please enter my votes in the Democratic column for those that I'm allowed to vote for, if those should be counted. My own gut and my own sense of rightness would say they're over at war, and of course count their votes. Do what they're asking. I mean, they didn't, there was also one vote that I did observe, and I didn't observe everything, obviously. However, there was one vote for a write-in for federal representative, and there was no write-in category. And I did notice that there was nothing noted if there was a name given. I did take note that the name avoided ballot was not made. In other words, showing the voter's intent. They named, I thought it was funny, the last name was Cranky, but so I remember it, Mr. John Cranky, they wanted to write in. However, I'm wondering if, for our own records, if we should not have made a ballot showing that write-in someplace under that column, though there was no blank there, and then remake that ballot, showing that one voided, and then remake it because Mr. John Cranky was not an official write-in. So I'm offering, well... That's not
the law says that you just do not make a record of anybody that's not legitimate write-in candidate. Yeah.
I thought...
What they submitted.
I thought that in May, and the reason I question that is that I remember in May at the certification meeting that that there was a question about how the write-ins were then being represented. And I remember, this is all from memory, but someone went downstairs, maybe at that meeting or the meeting right before it, but the board sent someone, a staff member downstairs to rectify a list of authorized write-ins. Deciding who was an authorized write-in was a question. So I'm just wondering about the handling of that.
I think that had to do with the precinct committeeman's race and whether in fact a declaration of write-in, if I remember correctly, the question there was whether a declaration of write-in had been properly time-stamped to count that write-in.
I think it was more in the realm of how the report was being generated and how much manual labor was involved in all the write-ins that were given and then determining which ones were valid write-ins. But I will accept that. I'm not standing here to challenge or to argue. However, I still have a question about the first. And secondly, I didn't notice any, there were only a few of those ballots that came in that had consistent-looking sheets of 8.5 by 11 paper printed, a pre-printed paper, so I would imagine those are the questionnaires. So what my question is about that specific and about the possible lack of consistency of the handling of those ballots.
Mike DeFranco, would you like to address that, please?
That happened last night, and I don't think you know about it.
Mike can talk about the handling of the ballots within the County Voter Services. I can speak of the handling of what we were addressing last night.
Right.
The ballots that were sent out from the County Voter Services Department, there was approximately 10, 15 more we were total. There were federal write-in only ballots. What that means is that the overseas or military or uniformed military officers, when they request that ballot, what they do is they write in their votes. What we have to do is on essentially a postcard size paper. And because it's only federal only, they can only go for U.S. Senate and U.S. Congress. So we marked those ballots that had a vote for a legitimate candidate for Congress or Senate. In the case of the write-in situation with Mr. Cranky is not a legitimate write-in candidate, so therefore we did not allow that to pass through. There's only 3 write-in candidates in all of this county's election, which is 2 in governor and 1 in the U.S. Senate. So what we did is for U.S. Congress and U.S. Senate, we remade that little postcard ballot onto an optical scan ballots and remade it to what the voter's intent was. We then marked each of the original, what the document that they submitted versus the one that we remade so that we can always go back to that source document and number those identically. And that's how we treated those. There was approximately, I would say, 15 of those that we did last night in the County Voter Services. As far as the questionnaire, I'm going to turn that over to Mike and Kathy dealing with the questionnaire.
Oh, before we go into the questionnaire, there was the concern, and I'll have to defer to council on this one. If the voter did not present, or did not respond to the appropriate ballot, and if the voter articulated his or her intent on a postcard, under applicable law, are we required to recognize that voter?
They have to be, they have to follow the same forms.
Let me, if I can, the 2 situations that what Ms. Eisner had seen it deals with the straight party situation is that we had 2 situations where the voter on this federal only ballot said, "I'm too busy, please mark all Democratic
Right.
candidates."
There's a name of the candidate.
That's not sufficient by law.
Yeah, it's straight
Federal
party
or
vote
state
is
law.
how we treated it, and Ohio does not allow for straight party.
Now, but let me answer this, Michael. Did they have an actual ballot that we mailed to?
No,
This-
they get it. They're considered a UOCAVA. That's an abbreviation for Uniform Overseas, but they receive that generally from their respective base or the
Uniform Overseas Federal Ballot, is that it?
That's something to that degree.
So they have to know these who the candidates are, right?
They can get a listing from their, they go to their post, for lack of a better word. They go there, get the federal write-in, get the federal ballot, and they just handwrite it. It's like a lined paper.
Do they start to fill out the questionnaire?
On return to the military,
Not for the federal.
Not for the federal only, they don't have to fill out that questionnaire.
I think all federal.
Well, if they were,
I'm almost positive all the federals have to do it.
situation that we saw at those federal write-ins, we had a label on there that was generated had been generated from County Voter Services that had their name, their precinct, so they were registered voters because they had actually, we had to even remake the ballot, we had to pull the right precinct ballot to be able to do that.
But what I'm getting is, I think.
The questionnaire, I understand.
He's saying that we didn't get a ballot back, we got the postcard back, correct?
Yes.
But that wouldn't have a label on it.
No.
When they're returned to us, when we receive the federal postcard, the federal card back, or the federal write-in, then we do the legwork on it to make sure that they are registered to vote. We had
You compare the signature then?
yes, everything is done at that point. It's like,
So the postcard fills out their address here in the States or in the county?
correct. The federal postcard to begin with fills out all of their information. If there's time is an issue, like we had, some of the mail just wasn't getting to Iraq, we would let them know to go get a federal write-in, they could vote for the federals, the federal offices. And then they would send that back to us, and then we would count that. There is a category on here, you'll see that the federal write-in was not counted because they did get their ballot and they did get it back to us in time. So that, it's just a way of letting them vote, I think when we're starting to run out of time.
Mr. Chairman, to the chair, did you then create another ballot, or does that postcard serve as the actual documentation of the vote?
That's the actual documentation of the vote until it goes to the ballot department and then they remake it.
They treat it as a remake too.
With the new law, that we can fax that to service, correct? That's the new law.
That's actually been out for a while.
Yeah.
How many people actually returned, how many did we fax out?
I believe we faxed out 4 to 5. It wasn't a lot, and one, as you know, the one gentleman, we did our best and he did not get it back to us in time, so it was unfortunate.
Mr. Chairman, the question you posed before, we have voted, or we're going to vote on the no overseas questionnaire return. For military people, are they given the questionnaire? Is that a part of the package? What's that?
It's just overseas, because there's no M's here on this category.
Yeah, it's
So
just,
this has nothing to do with
This
military?
has nothing to do with military. There's no militaries on this report that you're looking at right now.
they're just federal
So
citizens.
these are people that are working, might be in France, might be in
Correct.
Argentina, or China, as far as we know.
Correct.
This is the form also. It's orange, so we can't miss it, and we do put on there that it must be completed.
We have a motion to reject the 21 overseas ballots for failure to return the overseas letter. All those in favor? Aye, say aye. Next category.
May I just add a couple of things before you go through categories, because I'm not sure in which category my questions arise.
Can you hold off, Adele?
Well, I thought sure I can, but before you start approving each one, and because I'm unsure.
We'll give everybody an opportunity if they want to discuss any particular category.
Well, I don't know which categories my questions lie in because I couldn't see the ballots closely enough. That's my point. It's short. I'm not going into specifics. Two things that you'll hear, Adele Eisner again, two things that you'll hear from me in hopefully brief overviews or brief questions are that I can't say how competently I have seen the CVS department, Jackie, Mike. I didn't get to watch Kathleen's department a whole lot, but she was very willing to help. And that which I observed, this department has taken an overwhelming task and even made sense out of my role as an observer and allowed me to observe. So my hat is off to you folks. You've just done an amazing job. So my questions are not to point fingers. They are to possibly make recommendations and to reserve the right to gather public information and bring back more specific questions within the 80-day window within which the results can be amended. I don't have enough specific information. I just have questions that need answering. So I just want to reiterate that in my asking for public information regarding these absentee ballots, both military and non-military citizens residing overseas. And I'm not sure that all of the ones that I saw were military without the M, etc. What I believe that I observed was a large inconsistency with the handling of the ballots. That is what I am going to be checking. And so I would make, from that point, if that proves true, I will make a recommendation about the consistency. I did see the pieces of paper that the CVS department referred to. I did not see anything that looked like a postcard, i.e. a postcard stock. They were small lined pieces of paper that looked like personal correspondence, where the voters just wrote in people's names. So I think that I really will need to look at those originals. But it's the inconsistency of handling that I observed, not pointing fingers, but that I will come back with.
What department?
Well, I observed it.
No, I mean, what was it in the ballot count department?
It was in the counting that I finally observed it. And thank you for reminding me that this is my last overall absentee question regarding the absentees and how they were rejected, though I asked a number of times before the election as an observer, and obviously I was appointed after the absentees had been handled. My name was put in and then reaffirmed like 2 weeks before the deadline for observers. I have not seen anything about the absentee handling in the CVS department. In other words, I did not see how any of the absentees got originally rejected. It's not their fault, etc. There's just a lack of coordination of timing. I know that timing is short for everyone. It's precious. But I just want to put on the record that I have questions, and I did not get to see any of the opening of the absentee ballots or the rejections. So thank you. I'm done.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Could I ask one question?
Sure.
Could you be more specific as far as the inconsistencies of the handling of documents?
Mr. Suggs, I can only go from what I think I saw, okay?
Which is?
It was late last night. It was like after 8 or right before 8 p.m. It looked like different kinds of gatherings of sheets of paper. Some approximately almost square that looked like paper from writing tablets from the back, little line, okay. Some with 8.5 by 11 pre-printed forms. Some had 3 little sheets of paper gathered. I may have seen a postcard, like that little writing tablet square. A postcard and then a larger sheet of paper. Some had just a piece of paper that looked like somebody wrote. I didn't see any ballots except those that were the blanks that were brought out to be remade. I'm not pointing fingers at Mr. Liu. I'm just saying that what I observed from just those remakes just looked like there had been no process put in place to say, look for this, look for this. I mean, the workers were even sitting there going through these sheets of paper, furrowing their eyebrows, like, where is the vote here? They couldn't figure out what was going on.
How many ballots did this entail?
I just saw the few remakes that were like loose ends at the end. I didn't observe that. I am not questioning. I'm
sorry, you are questioning.
No, I'm saying that there isn't
We're
any.
questioning.
My recommendation would be And you'll hear this throughout today, and I'm not trying to go through every single one. I do not. I heard you say, well, how long do you want to be here today? I'm not trying to waste anybody's time. I think that this is the point. I want to put on the record that I have been there, and this is a recommendation that there needs to be some sort of overall policy so that even the workers can know what to do.
By your making that statement, and you're making it on film, okay, so that you can use that film and give it over to HBO, whoever you give it to.
I'm not giving my film to HBO.
Well, whoever you're giving it to, you are raising doubts for the voters of this county as to the accuracy of it, when you have not given us an opportunity to question the director as to his explanation. You said yourself that these were a few ballots last night. I'd like the director to explain exactly what happened last night for the record so that we have a clear understanding as to what has happened. Okay, and I think you're entitled to have that explanation.
Mr. Bennett, I am just trying to fulfill my observer duty by law, and I want to put on the record that I was there, and I am observing this approval process. I want to put on the record the questions. I am not putting anything about this entire election in doubt. I think I've been very clear.
I don't think you put the election in doubt, but I think that you put the procedures of this board in doubt by your statement.
Yes, I do believe that better procedures are necessary, and that would be a strong
I would like the
recommendation.
director to address that since he is involved in that.
There was only two specific things related to the federal-only ballots. These were the...
Well, Michael, let's back up.
Okay.
We're talking about last night, we're talking about 8 p.m. when Adele Eisner was in the room. What was the purpose last night of investigating? How many ballots are involved? What were you investigating? And what type of ballots were these?
These were only federal-only. And we weren't doing any investigating. We were tying up loose ends to deal with the certification.
Tying up loose ends?
Tying
in
up
what regard?
with the federal-only ballots. Any ballots that needed to be remade or rescanned that did not be part of the major portion of the scanning. So these were the federal-only that the staff had questions on how to address these specific ballots. Again,
Because of the way they came in?
the way they came in from the Canada Voter Services Department, they came in as essentially in envelopes, in red envelopes, which are known as the federal-only envelopes, where we had opened them up. Myself, first by the name of Maura McAdams, Julie Mosher, as well as Ron Blissey, sat down with me. We opened them up and identified what precinct those ballots belonged in. We went downstairs, grabbed those specific ballots, verified it against what the label that was on each of the original envelopes that it came in from the Canada Voter Services Department. We opened them up. We mated the optical scan ballot that needs to be remade and the original together and gave them to two specific staff. Those two specific staff members was Bruce Folger and Brett, I don't know his last name, but they're some of our better workers as far as the temporary staff goes. We also had Jim, I can't remember his last name, Jim and Cynthia Pratt as the other second team. And what they were to do, and what I gave them instructions on, was any U.S. Senate or a U.S. Congress, House of Representatives, if there is a vote for there, they're to remake it onto the optical scan ballot. They're to not do anything beyond that. Ms. Adele Eisner is correct in the fact that there was two types of papers that I saw. Those that are approximately the size of a postcard, not postcard stock. Let me correct that. And then one that was on full sheets. But each one of those sheets had either typed or handwritten their respective counts that they wanted to vote for. Again, they were only looking for 2 offices on those pages. There were other additional pages that came with the ballot, somewhere in the respective like letters. Dear Sir, here's my ballot, please process this ballot. There's 2 situations which we have dealt with that said, you know, I'm too busy, or I cannot, I don't know who the candidates are, but I'd like to vote for a specific political party. That's the instructions that were given. They were only 2 sets of teams because there were very few of those.
How many are total?
As I stated before, approximately there was 15. We can actually bring up those ballots up here and count them ourselves.
Like to see.
I don't disagree with anything Mr. Booth has said. I'm just pointing out that it looked like it was very inconsistent, and we might be able to write something or give people better instructions so that they come back uniformly.
Adele, in all fairness to the board, this looks to me like it was a cleanup process, am I correct?
Yes.
And that these were the exceptions that came in. And you're absolutely right. People read a note in there and don't even know what it is. I mean, people do a lot of funny things when they mail in their ballots,
Yeah.
like they do on anything, you know?
I totally agree with that, Mr. Bennett. I am just pointing out that I am making recommendations for the future. I am not here questioning.
I'm not sure, Adele, that anything was done wrong in...
I didn't say it was-
That's what we're trying to ascertain here.
I just said that he instructed these people. Do we have a written procedure for this? No, you just instructed these
I
people.
instructed them according to
We
the
should have
remake.
a written policy.
It's similar to any type of writing situation where it needs to be remade.
So I think, I understand, I think what's being recommended as we go forward, this may be a part of the front contract, that those procedures be not only verbally communicated, but those procedures be in writing. One of the things that Ms. Eisner was concerned about, and I think you did address that, had to do with the inconsistent paper sign. The paper signs would be inconsistent if people wrote little notes and they tried to articulate their preferences on cards or on, you know, even have my other sheets of paper. But what you said, Mr. Franco, was very telling. I think you said it, or Ms. Dreamer said it. We don't necessarily send out to our overseas residents a ballot. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So it's a responsibility of the overseas person, especially if that person is in the military, to go to the post and identify the candidate so that they can respond to us, correct?
Correct. And I'm not sure that those are all consistent in size.
Well, that's the point that Mr. Booth,
Yes.
that's what we're clarifying, that some of the responses came back on sheets of paper that were inconsistent in size. Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move the question.
I think the next category,
The B, 32 not county resident prior to living in the United States.
these are individuals who claim that they're now county residents, but they were not county residents prior to leaving the United States.
This also comes into play with the questionnaire. The question is, were you a resident of Cuyahoga County before leaving the country or state? And if they answered no, then these are protected.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So,
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. I'd like to ask one question. This is a public document, right? This will be made available to Adele. You'll be able to get a copy of this?
I understand that. Thank you.
Proper address be rejected. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
J, 8 ID envelope empty.
They return the ID envelope with no ballot. They return that.
I'll second.
No ballot to count. It's been moved and seconded absentee ballot envelopes that will be returned empty be rejected. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
K, 3 signature not genuine.
Mr. Chairman, how did we determine that those signatures were not genuine?
When we do the return, we do the signature verification, and the operators will compare the signatures to what's on the envelope as to what we have in the database, the registration database. And at that time, then they're flagged as not being genuine. And we don't pretend to be handwriting experts, but these were pretty far off. I don't know if you guys did receive a copy of the registration and the envelope.
Yes.
yeah, well, okay.
Yeah.
Katie York,
I'm sorry.
Katie York is one.
not a nursing.
No,
Do we have the signature on file?
The next has to be witnessed.
yeah, if the acts had been witnessed, we would be able to accept it.
Has anybody, the thing that bothers me on one of these three is that Daniel Manco signed Judith Manco's envelope.
Correct.
We know that by, oh, okay, so he admits it, so he just didn't know. I see what it is.
And we had a lot of husband and wives with the pre-printed applications, as also the envelopes, you know, where husband and wife signed. And when we caught those, we would keep them separate until we got the return of both of them, and then we would make sure they counted. This, I believe he did not apply at all.
Okay.
He just signed her. Signed her.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Is been moved and second that the three absentee ballots where the signature is not genuine be rejected. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
L, 6 ID envelope not complete.
I have a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second. I have a second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that the absentee ballots, 6 absentee ballots, where the ID envelope was not completely rejected. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
M, 139, no signatures on the envelope.
Have a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the 139 absentee ballots where no signature appeared on the envelope be rejected. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
We did bring up the, do you want to continue moving or do you want to look at it? Okay. Just ready. Do you want to look at it?
A lot of paper. Is this kind of, Adele, is this what, what you were looking at last night?
Kind of, but remember that I was sitting in a position where I was not looking over anybody's shoulders, but I saw, yeah. I mean, if you take out one of the originals, you'll see kind of what I was looking at. There's one with a pre-printed piece of paper,
Yeah.
8.5 by 11.
That's the application form.
Okay, well, I wasn't able to see what I was looking at. Yeah, and then there were, okay, and then there were some smaller sheets of paper like that, and then there was one with 3 sheets, 2 small sheets of paper, and then there were the verbal instructions, the oral.
The issue with letting you actually get up on these and see them as they have who they want to vote for, and you were going to see.
I wasn't asking to do that. I never asked to do
But
that.
they're all, they're different shapes and sizes.
I understand. Mr. Coxum actually reiterated two of my concerns, and one of them was that the oral instructions, that appeared to be one of them. One of them, they had to go through to the second page and find something that somebody hand wrote. So it's that the instructions were oral instructions. I would like to see more adequate, pre-thought out instructions in writing so that everybody is aware how things need to be handled. That's all I was saying.
I think that's what we're in the process of doing, is that we're under contract with Mr. Ladd to do exactly that for this election and for future elections. And I also think that again, we have to recognize that there was an attempt made to count these votes, and that's why that they were involved, the director and the deputy director, that these were questions that were raised by the regular staff. And that there was a real attempt made to count these ballots. Mr. Director?
Report, November 7th, 2006, general election provisional ballots in question, Director 2006-90 states in